Welcome to NFL Daily, where we can only hope we look as good as Jimmie Johnson at 81 years old. Hell, I hope I'm alive at 81 years old.
Absolutely.
I'm in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio, and I'm joined by my friend Patrick Claybon. Good to be back in person with you, buddy.
We're back. The travels went well. You guys were killing it at the Combine. It was an illustrious week of content, and I just know our fearless leader had us repped well. It was great.
It was really fun out there, and yes, I taped a show back in Los Angeles with Nick Shook, who was just straight off St. Elmo's on Sunday night. So I still feel like the chemtrails of the Combine is not quite over yet. In fact, we're gonna have on Colleen Wolf on our next show.
Okay.
And she might have some just tales from the Combine.
Just like lathered in cocktail sauce?
Well, things happen with her and Jordan Rodriguez also. So we'll see. It's not over yet. And yet, I bring that up to say, okay, that's just ending. And yet we're 6 days away from free agency starting. It's here.
It never stops.
It never really does. This is kind of a calm before the storm week, and yet there's going to be a lot of cuts. We have a few of those to talk about today. There's going to be some trades. So before the offseason starts, we're going to go through the AFC East. We went through the NFC a couple weeks back. We're going to go through the AFC this week and preview their offseason. Throughout the week, we're going to be talking about free agents, guys we want to sign, just moves we want to see, stuff like that, and updating you every day on the news. It is in the name. This is a week where I'm happy and believe that the daily format will bear fruit for the listeners.
No, it always has, Greg.
Sure.
Don't sell yourself short.
I know, but May, it's going to be just a little bit different. We're going to have fun, but there's going to be a lot of news this week. Let's start with it. Darius Slay is no longer a Philadelphia Eagle in a move that didn't seem to surprise Darius Slay, but still for some reason surprises me. They cut the man.
Yeah.
34-year-old. Coming off a pretty good season. I went and checked around. I was like, Darius Slay was pretty good last year, right? And I went and checked people around the team and everything like that. I was like, yeah, he was good last year.
And I have to imagine, because there's a path back, but just at this juncture, to try to figure it out before the draft, before free agency, before everything is set, to give Darius a chance, because he said he only wants to play one more year.
Yes.
Right. So it would seem like once we've navigated that, there'll be an opportunity for him to come back for his final hurrah for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'll say that.
As we're talking about it, I'm like, am I jumping the gun on even putting this out there? I mean, it's one of the top stories on NFL.com, so I don't think so. But then I look at his base salary. They're not even really saving any money. Huh. I mean, they are if they make him a post-June 1st cut. You save $4 million, but you got to wait till June. They're a team that kind of needs cap space now. It doesn't totally make sense to me. And then I suddenly am having flashbacks to other Eagles negotiations where they have said they're going to cut a guy, but then Brandon Graham, but then it ends up working out in the end. So stay tuned. But either way, I think Darius Slay has some good football left in him. I do think they are fans of the young man Keely Ringo, who did not get a lot of run this year, but apparently had a good training camp. Isaiah Rodgers played quite well for them.
Especially down the stretch.
Yeah, he's a free agent, so he's not necessarily back, but maybe he's someone they look at. We could bring him back for a couple of years, and they like Ringo. So just cornerback position in flux, a lot of influx in Philadelphia. The Bengals officially tagged T. Higgins. We expected that to happen. T. Higgins doesn't seem thrilled about all this.
No. Why would he be?
Yeah,
it's a league-wide cost control metric that nobody really enjoys. I guess there's, in some circumstances, it can work out for the player. But this is, you would like long-term security. And I saw an article that said T. Higgins posts cryptic message on social media. And the message was, when I know, I'll let y'all know. Yeah. I'm like, what's the cryptic part? It's he's going to be in a bad mood. Well, yeah. He would like to have this thing done. And how many times does he really need to say that? It feels like sometimes these things take unnecessarily long.
That's absolutely true, and you got to be careful with what articles you find out there. This is the first full NFL offseason with mass AI articles in the wilderness, because these last couple of weeks when I'm doing my research, Google is part of that tool. And you got to be careful out there. I don't know what's going on at Sports Kita or what. I don't know what that is. It seems like it's AI. There's a lot of AI articles out there that you click on. It's got a decent headline. I mean, they get you, and then you're like, oh wait, this is just slop regurgitated. It's bad.
And then so that slop gets ingested into the AI, right? And it gets regurgitated as Google's very first thing, which is how we wound up with that rule that didn't exist last year about onside kicks and timing. And everybody's like, oh, the rule book says you can't do this. It never said that. It never said that anywhere.
And like, how can I explain this and teach this to my children? How are they supposed to be so conversant in like figuring out what's? It's just very annoying. Let's move on from that. Oh, I did want to bring up to you though. Your name came up at the dinner table over the weekend.
That's never good.
The combine was on and like no one was working out, and my wife thought like, oh, that they should force him to do the combine. Like this is trash. Like no one, great is working out at the combine anymore. It's just ruining the event. They should force him. And I was like, well, my friend, I'm hearing my friend Patrick would tell you that the entire kind of draft system, what other industry is there where they could make a lot more money, but that's capped and they can't choose where they go. And so this is just one small bit of not fighting back, but like, hey, you're going to draft me anyways if I'm good enough. So why do I have to do this? And
to those folks, like I share your concerns. Pay them to do the combine. You get more people working out. You get a better show. If you would like more people working out, it's
unfortunate for the NFL Network and for everyone who covers it. But if the NFL scouting combine becomes mostly an event for like picks 25 through the 7th round, those people they're going to be they're going to continue to work out. It's not the end of the world. It's still very useful. It's useful for other reasons, obviously, the medical and the interviews. I think that's what teams get out of it anyways. But if the on-field stuff ends up just being kind of rounds 2 through 7, well, that's still most of the NFL draft, and that might be what it turns out to be, because those guys are going to want to prove themselves. They're unfortunately, they don't have the luxury to skip it.
I think one thing that might help, because we've seen multiple incidents where the medicals are an ordeal. Like that's a lot of time that gets invested in a truncated week where you're having a lot of conversations. Maybe if the medicals were offsite and we prioritize the workouts and the interviews, maybe that's a path forward. But it's a great event, and we get to meet guys and understand a little bit more about them and see them all in the same place. I think it's great for evaluation.
Yeah, I think the interview part is great for the teams to just get that much. I mean, how many people do I make a decision about within the first 15 minutes? Like most. I think it's plenty. Sean McVay excited that Matthew Stafford is back. He said he was sleeping better since Stafford decided to rejoin the Rams. Let's listen to a little. Sean McVay spoke with the media on Monday.
We've taken it a year at a time, and he's earned the right, I believe, to be able to say, hey, I think he could play for a few more years if that's what he wanted, but we've always had great dialogue, and I think it's really kind of been a year-to-year thing. He's obviously under contract for 2 more years with us, but as long as he wants to play, I know we're feeling really good about that.
Interesting to me, still a year-to-year contract. Didn't rip it up, didn't start a new contract, still don't have all the details. I really think the Rams got Matthew Stafford to basically return, and maybe they sweetened it a little bit, but it was clear based on the reporting, the Giants and the Raiders were willing to essentially guarantee 2 years. The Rams aren't doing that based on what McVay just said. It's a year-to-year thing, and we could be revisiting this again, and it's great for most parties. I think if, maybe not Matthew Stafford's like financial advisor, he has slightly less money to work with, but everyone else it's great for.
Yeah, no. And this was a Philadelphia Eagles team that was dominant, right, throughout the playoffs. And the only moment of fear was Matthew Stafford in the snow in Philadelphia, right, in the playoffs. And this team is so much better with Stafford. And the idea that you would have this very good base of a team now scrounging for the Darnolds of the world after living this lap of luxury. It seems like ridiculous in hindsight, but I think there was an opportunity for Matt to maybe do some skiing, as rife as that was with controversy. And I'm glad you were in Indy for that. But also to see what these other teams could say so that he could come back and he could know, and the Rams could know that this matchup was the best for both of them.
Yeah, I thought it was also interesting that McVay confirmed Rob Havenstein and Tyler Higbee are both back. Maybe not huge names to the general public, but the two guys who have been on that roster the longest. And so if they were trying to turn over their roster and really look to the future, they would maybe be getting rid of these guys. Instead, he's back. Stafford's back. They're both probably going to be starting this year, and they are definitely looking to contend while getting younger. I really think they're going to draft a quarterback this year with a second or third round pick, maybe even a first round pick. I think they're going to look to the future at quarterback. It's a weird draft to do that, but there are some guys, and you only have to fall in love with one in the second or third round. People connecting Jackson Dart to them. We'll see. I just think that this is time for them to start working on a new guy.
He did say that it was a very long process last time. This time it was significantly shorter.
Yes.
Maybe it'll be a couple days next year. You just get Matthew Stafford back. Regardless of what they do, future quarterback plans, I think Stafford's probably still going to be pretty good next.
Okay, so some titans of our industry in the football world have retired over the last week. We're going to get to our friend Ron Wolfley at the very end of the show. The Arizona Cardinals, great. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about Jimmie Johnson.
Let's do it.
He's been on the air for Fox for 31 years. He is 81 years old. When I looked up his age like a year ago for some reason, I was stunned that Jimmie Johnson was 80. Not just because his hair, but he's sharp, a lot of energy. You know, when you see Jimmie Johnson, that's not true for everyone that stays on TV forever, but it was true with Jimmie Johnson. Just happy trails. Always a pleasant figure in the landscape.
Yeah, it spans multiple generations that have no connection with Jimmie Johnson as a football coach.
Wow.
Especially right at Miami, right, or with the Dallas Cowboys. They know him as that you mentioned it, energetic, friendly voice on Sunday mornings. And congratulations to the end of a great career, navigating trifle relationships with Jerry Jones. And he finally was able to heal that thing up like that. That's a very difficult thing to do, and he did it in his own term. How about him, Coach?
He also, worked out alongside Terry Bradshaw and Howie Long that entire time. My first job in sports media, I think this is true, was for Fox on the weekends, writing shot sheets, as they call them, like a floor above Jimmie Johnson and Terry Bradshaw, but for James Brown and mostly Terry Bradshaw to read while they did their highlights around 2001, 2002 summers or football seasons, I believe. Yeah, the 2001 season was the first one. That was a lot of fun, and it was the same guys back then. They were beloved. Everyone just loved them.
Yeah, it's rare to keep a squad together for that long. So congratulations to them. And now, what are we doing? What's Fox going to do?
Oh,
Who are they putting in that?
I mean, they can live without. They have like 17 guys on that set, right? Now it seems like it'd be time for Terry Bradshaw to step away, but I think that's going to be up to him. They're loyal to him. He's still there. Howie Long's still there. Gronk's there, unless he is back in the NFL. Like, they got a lot of dudes. Couple just quick items. The Packers signed Isaiah McDuffie, 2 years, $8 million. There's a lot of 3-down linebackers available. I was thinking about that one because there's not really many guys in the draft that are highly thought of. Like, that might be the number one position to not draft, unfortunately, because it's so hard. It's so hard to get good at it quickly that players really are better by the time they get to their end of the contract. And for some reason, they're all available. There's like 7 or 8 really good 3-down linebackers available. The Packers decided not to go that route, but they like Isaiah McDuffie, and they got him for cheap.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of teams are trying to up on value on linebackers, and they want like edge rush potential. And so you get a lot of guys that are like coming in this year. Jahad Campbell is going to get a lot of attention.
He's probably a first-round pick. Right. After that, yeah, not many.
Yeah. And so, like, it's not necessarily that level of player and athlete, but you get a lot of guys. Well, we can get edge rush value in this guy, but this guy's just a linebacker. But like that idea of just a linebacker, I feel like is going to be falling out of vogue after a few teams in situations where it's like we really need people to be able to execute at this position. So hopefully the cycle is coming back.
And there's just less of them. To be fair, it used to be there was 3 of them on the field. Now there's 2. Sometimes there's 1, but just to recap, you guys can check out the top 101 free agents. Zach Bond, Nick Bolton, 2 big-time players. Ernest Jones, who turned the Seahawks season around.
Those are all Super Bowl champions.
Dre Greenlaw, who's one of the better linebackers the last 5 or 6 years. Jamien Sherwood, who was the Jets' team MVP last year, as voted by the players on the team, over Sauce Gardner, over Aaron Rodgers, over anyone else that would have been in contention for that good player. Robert Spillane, who had a great career revival with the Raiders. Bobby Wagner, Levante David, Kaiser White, who I had someone tell me was a top 8 linebacker in the league. I was like, I love Kaiser White. That's pretty bold. Tyrell Dodson is a good player. EJ Speed, like Cody Barton. There's just Willie Gay. There's lots of guys out there at that position. So I just thought I would highlight that as one comes off the board. And then, a couple other cuts out there. Alex Kappa, for instance, with the Bengals is no longer. And people immediately saying like, oh, let's sign Alex Kappa. If the Bengals are cutting you as an offensive lineman, like they need offensive linemen, that's not a great sign. So he is not going into my 101 because to me that is a red flag. That and his PFF score. But
you could make the case though, in support of Alex Kappa, that the Bengals' financial situation may be devoted elsewhere here for a little bit, and maybe
to T.
Maybe that's
but if he was like an above average starter,
right,
you're just not going to cut him. His number is not too great, not too crazy. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to preview the AFC East offseason. And yes, we're going to honor Mr. Wolfley before this show is over. Back on NFL Daily and back in the mix with my friend Patrick, previewing the offseason before it really gets going in less than a week. Crazy. So we got to get these divisions in, and we are going to a division that's near and dear to my heart, to Eric, our producer's heart, a division the Bills have absolutely dominated for the last 5 years. Pretty good. Pretty good. They want to take the next step, but, enjoy the good times while they're here, Eric. We're going to put 7 minutes on the clock, and we're going to go through all 4 of these teams, breaking down what they need to do this offseason. Let's hit it. Patrick will kick us off with a question.
Yeah, so we get a team that is in the red, one of 6 teams that are in the red salary cap-wise. As of right now, you get one shot at a restructure for an under 30-year-old. Josh Allen, still 28 years old. You get one shot at a restructure. What do you prioritize here with this money, with this, again, just winning an MVP, peak in the prime of his career? You've got some spots on the team, corner, defensive line, wide receiver. Where do you start with the limited opportunity that a restructure provides you on a team that could have won the Super Bowl last year, right? But because it's football and randomness happens, that you don't need to do a lot. So what do you do with it, Greg?
I think you prioritize defensive difference makers primarily in the front, and that kind of brings up another way they can make some room, which is cutting Von Miller. I think that's going to happen. I don't know if they restructured Josh Allen's contract this year. They actually might wait another year till the money goes up. There are a couple guys who have some long-term deals that they can squeeze some money, some coins from the couch or whatever. Ed Oliver is one. I believe Deion Dawkins is another one. They actually make pretty similar base salaries to where Josh Allen is right now. So yes, the Bills are $10 million over the cap as we talk, but between those restructures and Von Miller, they'll be able to do it. And yet they are a team where I think it affects them because I feel like they have a lot of work to do. We'll get to it, but overall, to me, it's a little more juice in the front because maybe it's unfair to count on Josh to just make everyone better around him, but I think that's working pretty well. The offensive line's in good shape, too.
Yeah, the offensive line it's a rarity, right? When you look around the league to see the teams that are in contention have these, solid guys up front that aren't necessarily aging. Like you got,
they're going to be in year 3 of this exact same offensive line. So that's crazy.
So it ain't broke. But my question is, right, because they are so close, it just feels like you can't afford not to try, right?
Right.
And so, along with making the changes, whatever changes you want to make to Von's deal, that's one thing. But Josh is the franchise at this point. Like, a restructure is not It's not a bad thing. It just depends on when you want to do it.
Right. It's just when you feel like you can create the most room. So they could restructure more than one. Certainly they need to create open space. Part of the reason, and I'll now transition to some of the stuff they can do thinking ahead. They've already re-signed Khalil Shakir.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that was early. And then I looked, how many of their players are up for free agency next year? It's crazy. Christian Benford, who has evolved into a number one cornerback. Really good player. Gregg Rousseau.
Got to keep him.
I mean, you can't keep everyone.
Yeah, you have to.
James Cook. Terrell Bernard. Maybe they don't do an early deal with him. That's a lot of their best players are up next season. So they are in a really tricky spot. All I'm saying is you got to add to this roster. Those guys are already there. And you're thinking about next year, and you're thinking about filling the holes in free agency from the guys that are leaving this year.
Yeah, it's just there's not much to add. Like, I don't think that there's this, like, oh, because I understand the feeling that they got to take a next step. Like, they're there. They're in contention, right? So how do you facilitate this roster in the best way to do what they need? Because they're not far. I think some talent in the secondary, some talent, some extra talent and depth at rusher or in the interior next to Ed Oliver takes them where they need to be. I just don't feel like they can afford to wait.
Right. And so Mac Hollins, who contributed quite a bit to them last year, and Amari Cooper are both free agents. I don't think they're necessarily keeping Amari Cooper,
gotta be out.
But they have Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, and Keon Coleman under contract next year. You probably want to add at least one receiver. They have two guys in my top. Actually, Damar Hamlin just missed my top 101. In my top 105, Rasul Douglas, who I think might be leaving, has kind of just been up and down there. So you need another cornerback. And Damar Hamlin, we'll see if they bring him back or not. They have drafted at that position with Cole Bishop and have some guys who have played for them. So it would be a shame to see him play elsewhere. But yeah, sometimes I think there's this feeling it's like we got to make a big push, but it's like you are there. They've done a good job balancing that throughout the last handful of years while staying right at the top. And yet, like, it's not an easy offseason for this team without a lot of cap space. And you would like a little more juice from that wide receiver room other than Keon Coleman just getting better.
Right. And I think it helps to go ahead and lock up Shakir, get that figured out. You can maybe save some money and relying on Mike White and not necessarily have Mitchell Trubisky.
I mean, that's a small amount of money.
Around $3 million. But ultimately, like, you can get good contributing players in that $3 to $5 million range. And so, like, if the whole plane's built out of Josh anyway, I think it would be tough to rely and project Kyer Elam, because I know he can grow, right? To project that growth for him. You could, not saying like somebody like Asante Samuel Jr. is like a bargain basement guy, but you can draft the corner and bring in not top tier free agents, but on down the list. Because I know like somebody like Byron Murphy, right, would be a dream, but I don't think they're in that.
I don't think
Murphy,
so.
DJ Reed range, right?
I don't think they're going to be spending huge. Maybe one like. I think they would spend more on the edge if they were going to spend some money, and then maybe at receiver. We'll see. By the way, they have an extra second-round pick from the Vikings. Did a good bit of business, part of that Dallas Turner trade where the Vikings basically gave up like a Myles Garrett package to draft Dallas Turner. We'll see how that works out. But they do have an extra second-round pick, so that is nice for the Bills. They do not have their third-round pick. They are missing that. They gave it last year to the Eagles. One of those that always a year later you're like, oh, I gave a 24 fourth for a once you get to the next year, it's very annoying. But they did one of those where they got an extra pick last year. All right, let's go to the New York Jets. $23 million in cap space.
There we go.
So about average in terms of how it goes this year. They have no third-round pick because of the Devontae Adams trade. That's not aging particularly well, but I didn't have a problem with it at the time, so I'm not going to say I had a problem with it now. But they do have Detroit's third-round pick that they got in one of those similar swaps I was just talking about last year, where the Detroit wanted to move up and they got an extra third. So they basically have a normal array of picks. Look, my question for this team is, where do they go at quarterback? Weirdly, the Jets have not been talked about much in terms of the quarterback position. Like they were not in on Stafford like the
Right.
Giants were. When you're hearing about Darnold, for obvious reasons, they're not really talked about there. So I am curious what their approach is going to be at quarterback.
Dimes returns to
Oh my
to
gosh,
MetLife,
no,
right?
you got to get him out of the city. It's for his own sake.
It's the city's fault.
Yeah, I know you're always saying, well, New York's just another place to play, but I just feel like he needs a new start. Maybe like, can he go back to Duke? Something like that. The Panthers.
Just hang out with Eli.
Be
He's doing
Bryce's
Monday Night
backup or
Broadcast
something, or the
for Manny.
Colts. That makes sense to me. Just something quiet, something where you can just go play foosball at night. I don't know.
There is talent right on this team. I mean, 20% of the cap, over 20% of the cap, as of right now, is devoted to Devontae and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Right. And so like there's some level of hope. But they're like nobody's going to put them on fraud watch next year because like it's already.
No, the rosters looks terrible to me. So I mentioned there's $23 million in cap space. We talked about the Devontae Adams potential cut and or trade on our last show. They can save $30 million just by cutting Devontae Adams. That's old school. That's kind of fun. Like that means there weren't all these crazy restructures. If they trade him, they save plenty as well, and you get something back. It'd be over 20, but like they save 30 just by cutting him. So right there, now you have $53 million in cap space. Rodgers, you could actually make the decision to eat all of his dead money this year because you opened up so much with Devontae, or you could spread it out if you chose to. So they have options. They will have more than enough money to spend. And to me, it's easier to say what they have versus what they need because much like the next two teams we're going to talk about, the Dolphins and especially the Patriots, they have needs almost everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Here is what the Jets do have. A really great young running back room. Don't need to add to that, like them. A sneaky great interior offensive line. John Simpson, who's a free agent pickup who played fine for them. Joe Tippmann, who they like, who's a young center, and Elijah Vera Tucker. So that you've got your interior line. That's about it. You also have premier talent, but that doesn't fix your whole position. So you have three guys who I would say are absolutely premier players, Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner, and Garrett Wilson, two of whom are up for new contract extensions potentially this offseason. And other than that, like you really don't have a lot. You have to replace almost your entire secondary. You have a ton of backups. Both your tackles are free agents. Your tight ends, free agent. Hassan Reddick, who they brought in as a free agent. Jamian Sherwood's a free agent. Like DJ Reed is one of my top free agents at cornerback. Like you have a lot of big time needs, and you have more guys from the old regime you might cut. So this is a team that I think is a little closer to starting over than maybe people realize.
So when you say starting over, would that mean that like a Garrett Wilson or a Sauce Gardner would be like trade candidates?
No, because I think that what's the point of trying to find good play? You want to build around them. Yeah. But what I mean is there are other guys I didn't mention that you could say are likely gone. Alan Lazard. Oh, yeah. I don't think he's going to be around. Tyron Smith. I don't think he's going to be around. DJ Reed, are they going to pay to keep him? Maybe, actually. Like, they have the money to do if they liked it. Aaron Rodgers. Like, so all these positions, all these guys. Morgan Moses was their starting right tackle. He's a free agent. You only have like 5, 6, 7 starters when I look up and down the list. That's kind of crazy. It's actually one of the lower numbers in the entire league. So the Jets, they're really going to test their new general manager, Darren Muji.
You do get Jermaine Johnson hopefully back after the injury. So you get some talent back there. Like there's
Olu Fashanu looks like a left tackle starter for the future.
There's places to make this team viable. But whether it's trying to make a case for Kirk, over Cleveland, maybe that wets your whistle a little bit more than Dimes, perhaps.
Yeah, if people forgot, the Jets, of course, with Aaron Glenn as the new head coach, hired a man named Tanner Engstrand as his offensive coordinator, a young up-and-coming, innovative mind by all accounts that was a passing game coordinator for the Lions. And so Aaron Glenn knew him there. And if Aaron Glenn is like his old boss, Dan Campbell, he's good at finding the right people to hire. But, man, they are really kind of starting over from scratch. And there's just a little bit of bad buzz about Darren Muji. I'm going to say it. Like not much of a presence
like
at the podium.
Combine buzz?
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, no.
just like was maybe a surprising hire that some people might interpret that a guy that's hired so that other people can kind of be more powerful. I don't know who that would be exactly. I mean, Aaron Glenn would be number one. That's maybe more of the Aaron Glenn show. They also hired Rick Spielman from the 33rd team as a special advisor. He's a longtime and quite successful general manager, by the way, with the Vikings.
Yeah.
And Muji, there was a little bit of buzz of like, was he a guy that was even on the outs in Denver? I don't know. Just a little bit of a strange situation. There's always something strange with the Jets. Just throwing that out there.
I believe in Darren Muji.
Okay.
The compound buzz is not convincing me.
Okay. My main point, though, is this is a team that has a lot to address. Wide receiver after Garrett Wilson, both tackle spots, your quarterback spot. You still need a little more at edge. We're kind of back to the old Jets phrase. With, they haven't had a pass rusher in a while. Well, they have had some recently, but they don't have one right now on the edge. And most of their secondary, including their entire safety group. So a lot of needs for the Jets. Let's go to the Miami Dolphins. Put the time on the clock. Patrick, kick us off.
The Dolphins do not have the burden that the Bills do. They are not in the red. They are $422,000 away from being in the red, dead last in the NFL among teams that have some semblance of cap space. Right now, the team plagued by injuries. Bradley Chubb injured in his time there. There was a reduced capability by both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Tua's bouts with brain injuries, of course, a preeminent issue in the minds of Dolphins fans. At what point are the McDaniel era Dolphins a question of whether or not they're viable?
Yeah, right now. Now is the point. Now they're in the offseason and they managed to be good enough last year that they were competitive. But going through this exercise and thinking about all that they need, I started to think, man, this is a under the radar team to be picking in the top 5 next year if they don't have a really good offseason. Now, Chris Greer, he's had some bad off seasons. He's had some great off seasons. Like, it's been up and down. The drafts mostly have not been amazing. He needs to have his best off season now because I think their offensive line, their entire safety group, like, they're a team that where if you look at their backup position, for instance, on our lads, like, it's all in the red. They just need a lot all at once, and they don't look especially viable right now to me.
Right.
Which is why this is an important offseason and exercise. Doesn't mean you can't fill in a lot of holes, but they're going to have to find some money to do so.
And it's weird because normally you look at a team in a cap situation like this, and it's like, oh well, like with the Bills, you look at Von Miller and it's just kind of jumping out at you. But like the Tyreek deal, not like killing you, right?
Would you really want to restructure Tyreek?
No.
The trade talk has kind of quieted down, but you never know.
Jalen Ramsey has played well and been a good part of this defense. They got huge contributions because, like, this time last year, like, Chop Robinson was the workout warrior, and you're just hoping to get a little bit of production. In terms of that was a huge success.
Great pick. He looks like a future star.
But even considering those bonuses, the team is still where it is, and you've got so many spots, whether it's at cornerback, whether especially on the offensive line, where Teron Armstead is delaying this kind of retirement stay-go decision.
There is an update on that. He did restructure his contract, and so that hasn't shown up on Over the Cap, and yet that should free up $12, $13, $14 million in cap space. A little unclear how much it'll be. He, according to Ian Rappaport, he is now going down to the minimum salary to, in Ian's words, delay his decision. Keep the door open if he wants to return, but often that's actually an accounting maneuver that teams that don't mind spending a little extra cash, this is what an owner that likes to spend can do for you. Ultimately, an accounting maneuver to open up cap space when Teron Armstead is probably gone to retire. And Stephen Ross, who has had his mistakes as Dolphins owner, for sure, is not afraid to spend. It's a reason why the Dolphins finished tied for first in the NFLPA player survey, because their facilities are so nice and all the players are treated well, and so credit to him. And so they're gonna find a way to spend the money. And yeah, it's just hard to find enough good players to put onto this team.
Yeah, that's the issue. At the spots where they need them, I think they got good contributions from Patrick Paul. I don't know how much you can rely on Teron Arm, like how much
he is probably their left tackle. So Patrick Paul was their second round pick from a year ago.
And so you get good contributions from a rookie there, but there's more work to be done than there's work that can be done on this roster, and you're going to have everybody come back. You're going to have relationships mended with Tyreek. You're going to have guys get healthy like Bradley Chubb and Jalen Waddle, and keep Tua on the field all season, and then you may just be in this situation again next year.
Offense, I don't think they're far away. I should be careful when I say offensive line. You need Patrick Paul to play well, but you drafted him in the second round to be your left tackle. That's probably what he's going to be. You need to fix the entire guard position. And they've been trying to do that for years and haven't been able to do it. So they need multiple guards. But they got a free agent pickup last year. They like an Aaron Brewer. They've signed Austin Jackson, who's been up and down, but he's signed long term. And your skill position guys, for the most part, are all back. They cut Raheem Mostert, but you need a healthy Tua. But you have Waddle and Tyreek. You don't have any depth there in general, but that's been the case. It's defense where you see even more key players. Javon Holland's one of my top safeties that's available. Jordan Poyer didn't quite work out with him, so you need a couple of safeties. You could use a cornerback. Calais Campbell as a free agent was very valuable. You need some defensive linemen. Right now, in terms of upfront guys on the defensive line, Zach Sealer is literally the only guy on the entire roster, which is a little problematic. I mean, if I'm not counting Chop Robinson, who's more of an edge, but when they are in like a base 3-4, it's like Zach Sealer and a couple guys that are free agents. So they just have a lot of work to do, and it's a tricky situation where Chris Greer is definitely trying to keep his job, and Mike McDaniel needs a big year. Back last decade, every once in a while, the Dolphins would pop up as that team that just went crazy in the offseason. Maybe they're that team this offseason.
You think so?
They'll just find a way to do it. Yeah, I don't know how or what, but they seem desperate, don't you? I think this roster is in desperate need of some good players.
I think in terms of like positionally, they've gone in the Jonnu Smith was a great pickup. I think he was spectacular. I think they need another tight end. They need a blocking tight end, or just invest in the interior of the offensive line, but with what money? Maybe you draft 3 guys.
Restructure some of these deals. Bradley Chubb, I think, will be cut. That is my prediction. I'm not rooting for it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bradley Chubb got cut to open up some space. If only you could trade cap space, because let's wrap up with the Patriots.
You can.
Can you? Could they just
you trade it to the player and compensate?
Well, there you go. Could they trade like $15 million of their cap space to a team that needs it for a 4th round pick or something? That would be cool, because the Patriots have too much cap space. They have $127 million in cap space. That's ridiculous. They have the number 4 pick in the draft because they beat the Bills' backups in week 18. It was their backups mostly too, but still annoying. Man, they could just be at 1 and just draft Travis Hunter, or trade if someone wanted to trade for Cam Ward. Maybe they could get Travis Hunter. That's who I want. They have an extra 3rd round pick from the Matthew Judon trade. So everyone in New England who's picking on Elliott Wolf, they hate Elliott Wolf for whatever reason. I guess he had a bad year. That's something good he did for you. What do the Patriots prioritize first? Because it's almost overwhelming everything they need, but what is the overarching vision of this new Vrabel Elliott Wolf? But we don't really necessarily think that Elliott Wolf is the one with the juice. I think it's Vrabel who's kind of running this organization.
I think it's the interior of the offensive and defensive lines. They go straight to NFL.com/Rosenthal. They get on the top 101 and they call guys like Cam Robinson, right? They make these calls out to tackles and guards who aren't necessarily like the top of the market guys, but who have played on contending teams in the past and played so at a decent level to where you can just get, and again, not value shopping, but getting players who are good on this football team.
There's some Ronnie Stanley buzz.
Yeah, Ronnie Stanley would be $127 million. And I think back to last week, right, where you asked Ryan Poles, can a team have too much cap space? And then he scared both of us because he was like, well, no. And it's like, wait, no. Like, you want to spend the money. And I understand you can roll it over to next year.
Yeah.
But there's only so many years that are available to do something like this. And so you have all that money. Why not? As much as I would love Ronnie Stanley to be playing for the Baltimore Ravens next year, yeah, you make him an offer and you change your team because like Drake May is all that matters. Like I've learned this in weeks of discussing this with you. So yeah, you make Drake May as protected as possible.
Now, you want a positive?
Yeah.
Not a lot of impact free agents on this team.
It's the good news to the bad news.
Yeah, Jacoby Brissett. They need a backup quarterback. Although they're probably fine rolling with Joe Milton. You'd kind of like to have a veteran in there, maybe. I would. The New England media actually tried to peddle this whole Joe Milton is available. That didn't really catch. Like, would someone give up like a third for Joe Milton, and they would do that because Joe Milton looked pretty sweet in that week.
I feel like some teams would give up a 3 or 4.
Okay, I think they would do that. 4, maybe not. I think the Patriots would do that. They would just feel like they're selling high. I don't know why. Have a good young quarterback. Jonathan Jones, who's been there forever, I feel like will probably wind up leaving. Dietrich Wise. Not a lot of big names in terms of guys that could be leaving. Devon Godchaux was also reported as available for a trade, so it looks like he will probably be released if they do not find a trade for him or Joe Milton. And yeah, people have this idea that I think, Mike Vrabel, you got to take a tackle early, or it's all about like protecting Drake May and improving everything around. I hope that's the case. Because when I think Mike Vrabel, I think he's just going to want big, nasty, like defensive players, and just going to want to make his defense as big and as athletic as possible.
I don't know if the Patriots roster is good enough to try to like pick at a position of personal desire, like the way Kyle Shanahan drafts, like in the mid to late rounds. I think they really can just, and it's cliche, sit there and take the best player on the board, which I think, right. Travis Hunter would be nice, but
I would love that. Give me some Travis Hunter. Keon White should be back. He kind of had problems with the old regime. Christian Barmore, they don't know because of his blood clot situation. So there really aren't many positions where you feel like you're set. Maybe guard if they believe Cole Strange and Mike Wenyu. Like there's a couple of guards. You've definitely got enough number 3 receivers. You got like 4 of them. But you need some number 2 and number 1 receivers. It's a little anxiety-inducing as a Patriots fan, though, to see all that cap space and just think they're going to be the team that feels like... Because they could spend $60 million in that cap space, and they'd still have 60 left over. Yeah. And there's not like 60 good million out there to spend, really. I don't know. Is there?
You can make the offers. More than $60 million is going to be spent in free agency here in the next couple of weeks, right? Collectively.
Right.
So,
but I mean, in like, but even if you sign like a Ronnie Stanley, how much is he costing on this year's cap? You could also front load things to just, since you have all that cap space, use it that way. Mm-hmm. But either way, like there's not enough good players out there to spend all that money. I really am curious how this is going to go for Elliott Wolf and Mike Vrabel. In New England, you probably don't know about this, but there's like all this controversy of like, why does Elliott Wolf say he has final say? Why is he speaking at the GM? Elliott Wolf people are very angry about, and they just want Mike Vrabel to be in charge. And like, why does Elliott Wolf have the final say? And first of all, it's like Mike Vrabel probably ultimately does. Like he has the juice. Second of all, is it that great that a guy who's your coach is I don't know, just making all the decisions? I'm a little worried about the whole setup.
Well, yeah, Elliott Wolf exists, right, to draw their ire and criticism as a shield for Mike Vrabel, who's ultimately, and again, there's a whole coalition of folks in Foxborough who are going to make the decisions. But yeah, it would make sense for Mike Vrabel to have significant input.
Right, because of course, and like I look at the free agent class and I want them to, like, they could use one of those off-ball linebackers I talked about. Mm-hmm. I think spend the money where the players are actually good, which is there's a decent amount of players in the secondary. Could you get a Charvarius Ward or someone like that, or Asante Samuel? Bring him to New England after all the issues with his dad. There's good safeties out there, but don't just spend just to spend. Don't add another third receiver. Like they don't need to add Elijah Moore to this group. You know what I mean? Like there's not top tier receivers. They don't need to add Darius Slayton. Even though Darius Slayton will help a team out there, it's not the Jets. You don't need to add Najee Harris or J.K. Dobbins to this group. Good players, but like you have Ramondre and just don't be adding.
0.
Eric's smiling because the one team we got to 7 minutes on was the Patriots, of course.
The only one.
Shut up. Let's wrap the show talking about our friend. We heard the news in Indianapolis, and it was so much to process that we wanted to give it its full
let it breathe.
Full impact today. Over the years, Patrick, we have enjoyed listening to the vocal stylings of Ron Wolfley on the Arizona Cardinals broadcast.
That is absolutely huge right there.
Like what about him sticks out to you?
The fact that he sticks out at all. As we get into these later stages of capitalism, there is a extent of sameness everywhere. Similar stylings, speech patterns, and this non-regional dialect that us broadcasters have. It's nice, it's standard, and it works, and it's worked for upwards of 60 years. Kind of mimicking a Midwestern, like a Ohio type deal. But it's cool.
Is that what you're doing?
No, I don't. It's what we all do, and it's like it's not like it's time to talk about the news. Like we got rid of that, and then we went to what we have now, and to have somebody still be unique in doing it and have people love it, it's worth celebrating, and that's what I love about Ron, and I hope he's able to enjoy retirement.
I wanted to know where he got these phrases from because they always seemed like they were off the dome. But did he just have like 70 different phrases that he could just always pull upon in the biggest of moments? Or was he just coming up with it? Well, maybe we should have him on sometime.
Yeah, like a Rolodex of terms and idioms that just seem to apply.
And I don't know even what accent he had. Maybe it's Pittsburgh. I think that is maybe where he's from, but he's from.
But regardless of the
Wolfley.
accents, like the vocal styling are so inherently Wolfley. And I'm glad that we get another one, that we can enjoy. But Ron's. There was something unique and special about Ron, even different from his brother, right? That we were able to experience in Arizona.
I loved it, and I love when you talk about the stages of capitalism. It really gets a big reaction from Chris back there. I think they like whenever you bring up where we're at,
the circumstances
in terms of the capitalism.
Yeah,
Eric,
we're there.
too. It's just funny that's what gets the reaction.
Yeah. Hey, it's an upgrade from feudalism.
Hey, and
maybe time for something else.
My voice might be annoying, but it's not just a flattened out Midwestern accent. How about that? It's different. We will be back, like I mentioned, on Wednesday. We're trying to stay in a regular cadence this week where the shows are posting overnight, so you'll have it in your feed on Wednesday morning. Yes, we're getting back the See You Next Tuesday crew, Colleen Wolfe and Jordan Rodriguez. So looking forward to that, talking a little AFC North and some other assorted fun. We will take you out by listening, and I'm doing it for the first time, to a collection of the greatest 1 minute and 45 seconds of sound you're ever going to hear from our friend Ron Wolfley. We'll see you Wednesday.
You can't cover Nuke! You're not going to be able to cover him! Throw the ball up! That's what Kyler Murray did! He extended the play with his legs and just chucked that thing up into the air! Into the desert sky, baby! And D-Hop brought it down! Touchdown! Spin the pig, Kyler! Spin it! Drop it! A dime being dropped into the bucket! Right over the shoulder of Marvin Harrison Jr. Oh, lickety jingle! Patrick Peterson in overtime takes it to the house, and Big Red wins. Unbelievable. Larry Fitzgerald went up and stabbed it with his steely knives. The wind knocked the pig out of the air, and DJ Dallas had the opportunity to return that ball. Oh my goodness. What a great play by DJ Dallas. Forget about the 5 route, David. Forget about the Hail Mary. How about the Hail Amari? DeMercado. The Bears never saw it coming.
Laterals it again. It's picked off by Dockett. Dockett running near side at the 15. Dockett inside the 10. That's it. The Cardinals have shocked the world. Trite but true. The Cards have done it. They're going to Super Bowl 43.
How about that, David? The Arizona Cardinals, baby. Going to the show.